Daniel chapter number 1. We'll pick up right where we left off this morning in verse number 5. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. For he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days. And let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. And let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat of the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, look at it now, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. I want to preach on this thought. I was going to preach 10 times better, but I want to preach on this thought on purpose. On purpose. Father, we love you. We thank you for the day. Lord, I pray that you'd bless now the reading and preaching of your word in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. And you can be seated. In verse 8, Daniel purposes to do something against the will of the king. Now that may not seem like a big deal when you're reading it off of a page, but when somebody came in and says, the king says you're going to do this, taking a stand against that's a big deal. And he didn't beg about it. He just, listen, he purposed in his heart. He said, I'm not going to do it. I don't know that he measured out all the consequences. I don't know that he really thought it all the way through. All I know is that Daniel purposed in his heart that he was not going to defile himself. He was blessed by God. God made sure that Daniel was going to be taken care of because Daniel purposed in his heart. When you get to verse 9, it says that the Lord, look what it says in verse 9. It says, now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. Now the perverts of the world would immediately jump out and go, see, they were gay. No, God is not going to cause somebody to do something that is so specifically Old Testament and New Testament against his will. But he brings him in. Have you never had a brother from another mother? A sister from another mister? Have you ever just had, the camaraderie with somebody that was so close that you didn't even have to you didn't even have to talk all the time. You could just listen to other people talk, and that was enough entertainment for you. You know, I had a buddy named Steve. I worked with him for, a bunch of years, about 10 years. And Steve and I were just that way. We'd listen to people, we'd kind of look at each other and just like, we already knew. We just kind of have, certainly when you're married a long time, Mrs. Grice and I, we have that. We don't have to talk. We can kind of have a whole conversation just with looks and nods and shrugs. And, that's just how it is when you've been married a long time. And you hope it's going in your favor. And so, but he brings him into favor. And here's the thing. Understand the relationship again. In captivity. Probably lost his parents, at least dad, in the war. Lost his home. Lost everything. Could have been bitter. Could have been weird about things. Could have been ugly about it. Could have been very vindictive. But instead, Daniel says, I just want to honor God. I don't want to defile myself. But God brings him into tender favor. And he asks this guy for this eunuch, he asks him, he said, test us for 10 days. Now, if you remember, up in verse 5, we're told that it's going to be a 3-year thing. You're going to educate them, make sure they know everything about the language. They're going to know everything. And in 3 years, they're going to stand before the king. Daniel says, we have all the time in the world. 3 years is a long time. Test us for 10 days, and let's see what happens. So he does. He tests them for 10 days. And listen, a 10-day test turned into a 3-year blessing. 3 years of being in God's favor, being super educated, and God's going to use them to do major things. And they're going to do them in the kingdom that's evil. These are not God's chosen people that they're living among. This is the world. This is wicked. This is darkness. And the king is a messed up king, and he's a drunkard and has a lot of problems. And yet Daniel's going to do good for this king. Sometimes we don't always like the situations that we find ourselves in, but we need to do well, and we need to do good wherever we find ourselves. Listen, you may not like who you work for. You may not like the people you work with. There's a million ways to make a living. Most of them are legal. You don't have to be miserable, or you can make the best of it. You could try to win people over. You can try to win people to the Lord. You can try to be a light in the darkness. And, if you've already got a raging bonfire, one more little stick doesn't make that big of a difference. But you take a burning log and put it in, take a burning fire and put it out in the deep dark somewhere, and it makes a big, big difference. In fact, you almost can't take your eye off of it. You ever been out to a campfire and, man, you sit around and sometimes you don't even, you're talking to each other, but sometimes you don't even look at each other. Everybody kind of sits around and kind of stares at the fire. Man, we ought to be that kind of light where, listen, people are talking, they're having conversations all around us, but they got their eye on us. Now, that's a lot of pressure. But that's okay if you've purposed in your heart that you're going to do something for God. Can I tell you, people don't usually do stuff on accident. They don't do it on accident. Your kids will be like, I can't find my shoes. You go, no, they are in the bin where your shoes go. They are on the shoe rack. They're right there underneath your clothes. They're against the wall where they're supposed to be. And like, no, they're not. Well, while you're finding your shoes, find me a belt. Because that's where they're supposed to be. Like, well, I took them off on accident. No, you didn't take them off on accident. You specifically took your heel off of one shoe because you don't ever untie your shoes. And you put one heel up against the other heel and you yanked your shoe off. Then you took the big toe on your other foot, your bare foot, and you pulled off the other one because that's how you do it. And you left them somewhere under a table or in a room or in the hallway or in the backyard. Go check under the trampoline. And you look around and listen, you did it on purpose. You just did what you weren't supposed to do. And I'm not talking about shoes. We so often live in disobedience. And people are like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. What do you mean you didn't mean to do that? You didn't mean to hit him? I mean, you balled up your fist and you slugged him pretty good. You're a pretty good aim for doing it on accident. You caught him right in the eyeball. You know, sometimes we do things that we ought not do, and we do it on purpose. You kind of do what you've decided to do. Somebody gave me ministry advice years ago, and it is the meanest, cruelest advice, I think, because Mrs. Grice and I used to be really, long before I was pastor, we were busy, and we would do anything somebody wanted at church. And people kept piling on, and I never understood it until I had a preacher friend tell me, you know, I was like, well, how do you motivate people? He goes, oh, most people you can't motivate them. I was like, okay, man, you're a great encourager. Man of God, you know. And he goes, no, man. He goes, if you need something done, find the busiest person around and give that job to them. I was like, but there's, what? And he said, yeah, because busy people are busy on purpose. And they will find a way to get it done. That's who they are. That's who they are. That's why you go on a job, and maybe hopefully you're that person. You're just the person that gets it done. You're the go-to person. You're the go-to person. Listen, if God had a toolbox, I would want to be God's favorite hammer. I'd want to be God's favorite drill gun. I'd want to be God's favorite, you know, Grice head screwdriver. You know, I want to be used. I don't want to be like that smallest Allen wrench that never finds its way out of that little weird case. Meanwhile, the one that gets used all the time, it never makes it back in the case. You just got to dig around and find it. It's in there somewhere, you know, and you grab it. But you don't want to be that little weak, anemic. You'd be scared to use it if you had to. Looks like you might repair eyeglasses with it hanging down over there on the side. What's that all about? Or just the big cumbersome over here. Who even uses that size? What's that? Man, I want to be that right size. I want to be that half inch, that 9/16 wrench. I want to be the one, the common. I want to, you know, I don't have to be anything special. I don't need to be a specialty tool. I just want to be the one that God grabs all the time. I want to be that favorite tool, not the one that sits in a comfy spot in the dark in the stupid toolbox. I want to get out and do some stuff. But that only happens if you determine to do that. If you purpose, do it on purpose in your heart. I was like, well, what about everybody else? How do I motivate them? He goes, no, they're doing nothing on purpose. I was like, you are not an encourager. He said, you better get your eyes wide open. That old 80% of the people, 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. Sometimes it's 90% of the work gets done by 10% of the people. But that 80-20 rule is kind of where that is. And that nobody's mad at people that don't do anything. We just kind of scratch our heads. I'm going, why wouldn't you want to have a part? Why wouldn't you? I mean, there's just times you ought to come together. At our house, the time we come together is dinner time. You know, we're all busy people. The kids got school, the older boys got work, the younger boys have Nana, and I want to go to Nana's house. I want to go play with that little kid down the street or the kid further down the street. And, you know, we're all busy. And Angela's doing 10 things and I'm working. But when we come home, we have that time where we try to gather around the table. You know, it was just weird. Last night, we were all getting ready. We were all sitting down and we were calling our oldest, you know. And he's like, I'll be there in a minute. And then he came in and, you know, finally he's like, oh, I didn't realize everybody's at the table. And it was weird that he wasn't part. So he hurried to the table and everything seemed right. You know, here's the deal. When there's something to be done at church, when it's time to pray, when it's time to come together and have a worship service, it's weird if somebody's not here. It's weird if somebody, I don't mean like they were providentially hindered. They're sick or they had to help somebody, but when it's just kind of a meh. What have you purposed in your heart? Now I'm talking to the Sunday afternoon crowd. Y'all been here a long time. Most of y'all been here, a bunch of y'all been here since before 9, and most everybody's been here since 10. And so I get, this is a Sunday afternoon crowd, but I'm telling you, the people who refuse to be a part of what's going on have done that on purpose. You wouldn't be here today if you hadn't on purpose decided and made means to be here and been here, and you're here on purpose. But I'm telling you, there's more than here than us gathering together to serve God. Daniel said, I'm not going to defile myself with the king's meat or the king's drink. Now, I'm not talking about why you shouldn't eat at McDonald's. That's a whole, they make videos about why you shouldn't eat at McDonald's. Supersize it. I'm not talking about that. And obviously we're not talking about drink. You shouldn't drink. There's no place for drinking in what about what Paul told Timothy to take for his stomach? Then you go take some Formula 44D. You go take some medicine. That's what they're talking about there. They're certainly not talking about getting drunk. How ridiculous is that? And so we're not talking about food and drink right now. I'm talking about what have you purposed in your heart that the outside world, remember this is conquering king, bad guy king, taking over them, splitting up their family, taking them apart. And now they said, we're going to take the best and brightest that somebody else was raising, right? They took them away. These are the best kids. These are the kids, their mamas and daddies were raising them right. And now they're going to take that and use that for the world. Guys, I'm just telling you, young people, you ought not let the world have your best. I'm not against playing sports and being healthy and all that kind of stuff, but I saw an article the other day, it was really good. It said, when ball becomes Baal. God, when all of a sudden ball becomes a god, whether that's volleyballs or softballs or footballs, and all of a sudden playing sports and stuff can become a little g god in people's lives, and they will forsake church, they'll forsake serving God, they don't care, they'll put their kids, and they make a priority in the wrong place. And listen, in every difficult decision that we have to make for our children, we are teaching them. We're teaching them. We need to teach our children that sometimes, hey, we like this person, but they've made some choices, and so we're going to back away from them. Sometimes that's friends, sometimes that's family. And sometimes you have to say, hey kids, and they're like, well, what about so-and-so? No, we love them very much. But we make decisions and they make decisions. And because of the decisions we made and the decisions they made, we can't hang out right now. Now we can pray for them, and we will, so let's go ahead and pray for them right now, but we're not going to hang out and pretend like everything's okay, because everything isn't okay. And you go, well, that's when people need you the most. Good. You know what they need to do? Let me tell you something. Trying to be kind. Cuts down on phone calls later. The prodigal son, his daddy was ready for him to come back, but his daddy didn't chase him down. He had to come to himself. He had to come to himself. And he had to make the decision. You know what he had to do? Do you remember? He was about to eat the corn husk. And he said, man, the servants in my father's house eat way, but they have more than enough bread. They have leftovers. They're throwing stuff out. And here I am eating garbage that the pigs aren't even eating. He came to himself. And he said, I'm going to go to my father, and I'm going to say, Father, I'm no more worthy to be called thy son. Let me just be a servant. And now, of course, his father didn't listen to him. He came up, and his daddy hugged his neck and reinstated him as son. And, just gave him his place back. See, it was the boy's choice to go away, and it'll be the boy's choice to come back. If there's people that want to run from God, listen, don't expect everybody to come give up everything to come change. Well, what about the 99 and the 1? I understand about the 99 and the 1, but you don't burn the 99. You have to make sure the 99 are safe, and yes, you go after the 1. But how sorry of the 1 to have to be chased everywhere because you wouldn't purpose in your heart that you were going to be faithful and just serve God. People that are doing nothing, they're doing it on purpose. People that are serving God, listen, we live in a busy world. They're doing what they're doing on purpose because they just think they're somebody. No! They have purpose in their heart that they want to serve God. They're doing it on purpose. You go, well, I wish I could do that. Then do it. You'll do it on purpose. You're not going to accidentally stumble one day and go, oh, I fell right in the middle of God's will for my life. Look at this. Fat chance. He said, I'll not defile myself. The world. This morning I preached on how the world wants your kids. Let me tell you something. These guys were the best of the best of the best. These four. Do you know what their reward is from the world? They are going to better that kingdom. You know what their reward is? They're going to try to feed Daniel to a den full of lions. How's that for a thank you? Oh, they're going to take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and heat up, and they're going to have a barbecue. They're on the menu. They're going to throw them into a burning hot fiery furnace. The world doesn't give a rip about you. You go, well, I've got a good job. Yep, you got a good job, all right, and I hope you're the best at it. Try to work where they can't live without you, because as soon as they figure out how to live without you, they'll realize they've been paying you more than others. They'll try to take all your secrets and put it into people that don't have any kind of your work ethic, and they will set you out like a piece of trash. The world don't love you. Do you know what your employer's trying? And I'm not saying this is wrong. That's economics, okay? The economics of work is they are trying to squeeze every bit of work they can get out of you for the least amount of money, as long as it's convenient. Unfortunately, that's capitalism. Now, you find the place that squeezes and hurts the least and pays you the most. But that's why it's good to work for yourself if you can. Because you determine how hard you get squeezed. But that's what a job does. A job says, listen, that's why they give you benefits. Do you think they give you time off because they love you? No, they give you time off because the place up the street will give it to you. Do you think they give you sick days because they love you? No. They don't want you to take sick days. But they give them to you. That's why they give you benefits and 401ks and all this kind of stuff. Listen, the reason they give you that is not like, I think we should take the high road and be a blessing to our employees. No, everything comes down to the bottom line, and they're going to squeeze you and squeeze you and squeeze you as hard as they can for the least amount of money for as long as it's convenient. And then when they're done, they go, look at that one. And they throw you out, and then they move on to the next. We've seen it over and over again. Meanwhile, God commended his love toward us. And then while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. There's a lot of for us that God did. There's a lot of for us that God is still doing today. So we ought to, in my heart, in my mind, we ought to purpose in our hearts to do things for him. We are saved unto good works. We ought to do good works, and we ought to work them well. We ought to stay busy for the Lord. Not because we're bees and we don't have other things to do, but because God is a priority in our life. How big of a priority is God in your life? How big of a deal is it? I'll be honest. I'm closer to you guys than I am my own biological family. Being in a church family saved my life. That's what God used to save my life. That's what God has used to bless my life. That is what God has used as a support system. I am unbelievably blessed. I know what it means to be alone. I know what it means. You can't tell it by looking at me. I know what it means to be hungry. I know what it means to go several days without eating, and not because you were doing anything spiritual. There just wasn't any money. I know what it means to be in an apartment all alone and not have a phone to call anybody and not have anybody to call if I'd had a phone. But God. But God. God used even some knucklehead friends to help me get in church, and immediately made some more friends. And if you want to be friends, you got to show yourself friendly. And listen, I don't need 50 friends. I know what it is to be alone. If I have one or two friends, I consider myself blessed. Major blessing. If there's somebody I can trust and they know they can trust me, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need 50 people around every second. I'm not the guy who has to be in that crowd. But it's good to have some friends. And God has used friends in my life. God has used you, so many of you in my life. Perfect timing, perfect encouragement. God knew what he was doing. He still knows what he's doing. By the way, he knows what he's about to do. And we all just have to decide, listen, on purpose in our heart, I want to be a part of what God is about to do next. I'm excited, thrilled about our church. I'm excited, thrilled about our church family. I'm excited about what's going on. I'm excited about people wanting to get baptized. I'm excited about people wanting to start a ministry. I'm excited about people helping in other ministries. I'm excited about people joining the church. I'm excited about what God is doing in, to, and through our church family. I love you guys. Y'all are like all the dysfunctional aunts and uncles, man, I never had. And I'm the dysfunctional uncle. You know, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There wasn't 50 of them. The Bible says those four. Those four were the ones that were going to stand before the king. Could you stand before the king? Have you done your best? Have you purposed in your heart? You know what scares me? It's not when I don't feel like God's doing something special in my life. It's when I don't know why. Most of the time, I can absolutely, if I'm honest with myself, and I kind of go, I haven't seen any like super blessings in a while. Now I like blessings. I do. I'm like, oh, that's a blessing. Well, that's a blessing. But every once in a while, you get one of those, woo, super blessings. Like, what just happened, blessings? If those don't come along every once in a while, I'm like, what am I doing or not doing? And I pull one of those King David, Lord, search me and try me, and see if there be any wicked way in me. And I purpose in my heart, God, I'm going to quit doing that, or God, I'm going to start doing that again. God, I want to be part of what you're doing next. And a lot of times, and this is weird, it's not automatic. It's not like a vending machine, like, oh, you do this, put 3/4 in, it gives you, no, it's not that. But I've learned that when I get big old David Grice out of the way, and I just try to be a blessing to somebody else, even though it's going to cost time, money, effort, emotion, all that stuff. If I keep pouring into other people and trying to be a blessing and let God use me to be a blessing to these people, whether it's helping them back up, whether it's helping them along, helping them get saved, or whatever it is, all of a sudden, whoa, happens again. And the blessings come. I don't know about you, I love it when God does something unexplainable in my life. When you look around, you're like, I wasn't even looking for that. Sometimes I'm looking for a blessing. I'm like, Lord, please, please, please. I prayed, I read, I need green lights all the way on this trip. I'm in a hurry, and I'm trying to go. And you may think that's dumb or immature, but that's a big thing in my life sometimes when I'm trying to get somewhere. And I'm trying to figure out how to get where I'm going. But other times, I'm not even looking for a blessing, and here it comes. And it's like, whoa, what in the world? Nothing in the world. What has God done? What hath God wrought? And sometimes you're tooling along and you think, well, I hadn't seen that in a while. But God. If God can use you, God will bless you. Yeah. I'm not talking about health and wealth, name it, claim it, blab it, and grab it. I'm not talking about that. You can still get sick. You can still have bills. You can get a traffic fine. I hate those. But I'm telling you, if we will purpose in our heart and follow through. Daniel purposed in his, he didn't say, I purpose in my heart. Well, if you say so. No, he said, I purpose in my heart. I don't want to do that. How about you test this? We've got time. I don't have to stand before the king for 3 years. Give me a 10-day test. When was the last time you just said, Lord, I'm looking for a big blessing? Why don't you give me, I'll do a 10-day test. Let me do a 10-day test. A 10-day test. led to a 3-year blessing. And they were found to be 10 times better. I don't know about you, I want to be found better. Not better than everybody else. I don't care about that. I used to care about that a whole lot. But the truth of the matter is, what I care about is being better than I was before. I want to be better with doctrine than I was a year ago. I want to be a better preacher than I was a year ago. I want to be a better pastor. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father than I was a year ago. I'm sure my wife and kids want that as well. That's not going to happen by accident. I know we just diddling through life and somebody's like, look at that, Father of the Year. And you're like, where'd that come from? No, you're going to have to determine and purpose in your heart. Make a decision and follow through with that decision if you're going to do anything for your family, for God, or anybody else. Listen, it's okay. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but it's okay to serve the world. That's how we, the Bible says make friends with worldly mammon. So go earn a living. Be good at what you do. We're on the side, we're travel agents. So what I like to do? My wife handles she does 98.5% of everything. And but I call every once in a while, I'm like, hey, what about these folks? Are they going on a cruise? Did we make sure they knew about this? Did we warn them about that? Did we send them a gift? Did we do this and that? And all of a sudden, why? Because it's customer service. I don't want to just be the guy who says, well, if you book something through us, we'll give the money to missions. That's fine. But the reality is, I want to be the best travel agent they've ever had. I want to be the guy that says, hey, you guys ought to be at the port by now, getting on that boat. I'm just checking on you. Oh, yeah, preacher, we're at the boat. And I'm like, super. Hey, if you need anything, you just call. We're ready. You contact us through Messenger, whatever, and we'll be right there. And I want them, hey, you guys ought to be so-and-so, and I try to hook them up with friends where we're at. Why? They can do all that themselves. But I want to be the best travel agent. I want to be the best at what we're doing, making worldly mammon. And if I was going to do it for the world, I promise you, so much more important, I want a purpose in my heart to do right by God, to be faithful to the Word of God, to prayer, Bible reading, Bible study. I want to be faithful. Just want to do right. Just morally want to do right. I want to be a good example. I want to be a shining light in a dark world. I want to be a good example to my boys, to my niece and nephew. We have a tight family. We spend a lot of time together. Listen, I want my boys to see a daddy who reads the Bible and prays, that knows that serving God's a big deal. I want them to be with me if we lead somebody to the Lord. I want them to be with me if we invite somebody and they show up at church. I want my boys to see what we're supposed to do. And I want them to see the blessings of God. You don't accidentally get the blessings of God. God blesses faithfulness. And because of that, like Daniel, we ought to purpose in our heart that we're going to be faithful. As you read about Daniel, when they made the law that you couldn't pray to anybody except the evil king, he went just like always and prayed just like always, in the open just like always. He had already purposed in his heart, and God blessed him for it. Let's all stand. Nothing good and godly happens on accident. You're not going to stumble into the will of God. You're not going to accidentally be faithful. You're not accidentally going to do what you promised last time you recommitted your life and rededicated and all that. And it doesn't happen on accident. It happens on purpose. So let me challenge you. If you see an area of your life that's lacking a little bit, on purpose in your heart, that you're going to do right by God. And I bet you'll find that He blesses your life for it. Father in heaven, we love you. Lord, I pray that you'd be with our invitation time. I pray that your Holy Spirit has spoken to hearts. And Lord, I just pray that as we respond, that you'd bless for it. Lord, I pray we'd be dedicated to do something on purpose. In Jesus' name.